Hello everybody and welcome back to Kenmore Violin Studio for today's tune-up where we're talking about intonation. So as you probably know, when you play the violin you can put your fingers anywhere and you can make pretty much any note. You can make notes that don't exist on the piano. So on the piano the keys are already tuned and you get what you get. And as a matter of fact, the piano is pretty in tune, but it's always a little bit out of tune. The reason being that when they tune the piano they have to make some compromises so that it works well enough in each key. So it'll work in F sharp minor and it'll work in A major. So in order to make that happen, you've got to make the notes sort of sit between the ideals for each one. When you play the violin, you don't have that constraint. However, it's quite easy to go wrong, as we all of us do at some point. So it doesn't matter what level you're at, you're always working on intonation, and you can usually play a note better in tune. And so even if you're a rank beginner, you can, if you work at it, you can get a note better in tune than some of the most advanced players some of the time, right? So we also should think about what it means to play in tune. So it turns out it depends on the context a bit. So you usually think, well, a note that's in tune is going to be ringing, which is true. So for example, an octave, you can hear the octave are two notes that are just, those are two G's, but they're an octave apart. So it sounds very plain if they're in tune. There's also the unison, so I can play the open A, and I can use my fourth finger to get an A on the D string. Sounds very plain if they're in tune. If they're a little bit out of tune, you get what's called a beat frequency. So you can kind of hear that. Can you hear that whoa, 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 whoa? That's the notes kind of fighting each other. So those are the octaves and the unisons. They're very pure. The next kind of pure intervals are the fourths and the fifths. So the open strings, those are your fifths. And a pure fifth it's going to have a deep ring to it, because the notes actually create another note, which is, when they ring together, they create another note which is much lower. The same is true of the fourths. A fourth is really just a fifth that's upside down. So this one happens to be B and F sharp. If I just move that B down an octave, there's the fifth. So the octave, if you're playing an octave with your first and fourth finger, that's your hand frame, and then the fifth goes along with that. So it's a great idea, actually, to play scales in fourths and fifths for your intonations. That's a scale in fourths. It wasn't quite in tune, but it was close in some cases. Some people even say play a scale in fifths. It's going to sound weird. Some of those notes rang, some didn't. When it comes to thirds, it's kind of an interesting story. So you want the third to ring. It didn't ring. First of all, I make sure I got my right D there. So I'm using the fourth finger for the D on the G string. So the unison sounds good there. Now I'm going to add the F sharp above it. It's one of my favorite bits from the chaconne. So to get that major third to ring, you'll find that F sharp, and it turns out it's a little lower than you would otherwise use an F sharp. So the ringing third is slightly a tighter interval than the third you would use if you're playing expressively. So top of a G major scale, for example, that F sharp is very, very close to the G. It's called a leading note, so because it leads you to the G. If I play that same F sharp with the D, it's not going to be in tune, so I need to lower it to get that ringing sound. Same is true if you're playing fast passages and you want them to sparkle. If your notes are too quick to really ring with other notes, then you generally want to make your semitones very close. For example. So those are some ideas for intonation. I hope it helps. But yeah, always have your ears turned on and just know that no matter who you are, your intonation can probably be better. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.